Welcome to another lecture of Workbook 3. This is our mini lecture 3 in which we'll discuss potential methods, and this is part 2 of the potential methods. Uh, in the previous mini lecture, we talked about the questionnaire, the qualitative data, and the quantitative data. In this, we'll start with the interview. So, I hope everybody is familiar with what an interview is. There is an interviewer, which in this case, you're going to be the interviewer, and there are going to be interviewees who will be giving you the data. So, interviews are mostly used to collect the qualitative data, and they're not considered good for the quantitative data. But when we talk about their different type, so different types may be used in order to get different types of data. Uh, structured. Structured interview is something in which you ask the same question from everyone that you're interviewing. So if you have like one, two, three, four questions, you'll ask the same questions in the same manner, in the same order from everyone. When we talk about semi structured, this is also structured, but it's not that rigidly structured. So you might have four themes in mind, which are the same, and you ask the question related to these four themes, but you're a little bit flexible in how you ask these questions and how you formulate maybe another question from the response. Then we have the unstructured. You keep the journal topic in your mind, but you do not have the exact pattern or exact rigid number of questions and the pattern of questions that you're going to ask from people. Now you have to decide that if you have to collect data using structured, semi-structured, or unstructured interview. Some for and against for the interview. First of all, the interview can build rapport and consequently provide more honest and detailed answers. So obviously, when your purpose is to generate theories, when your purpose is to explore something which has not been explored in a lot of detail, then you need to go into an in-depth data collection. So then you have a very good method, that is interviews. And when you're collecting data through interviews, sometimes you also come up with new themes because sometimes when you're making a constant comparison of the data that you're getting from the interviews, there are new themes which are emerging from the data. So in that way, it's a very interesting way of collecting in-depth data. Then you rely on the participants' participation. Most of the people are not willing to participate in the interview process, and they're not willing to give you in-depth data. So it can be a time-consuming exercise. Then there are some biases that are related to the interviewer. So sometimes when you're framing a question, when you're asking a question, when you're recording a response, you might have your own biases that may eventually affect the findings of the data that you have collected from the interviews. Then there is a problem of the honesty. If the researcher is collecting data through interviews and the interviewee is, let's say, good in impression management, so they might not be telling you the truth, which you believe that it's truth. So there might be some issues with the interviews. Same goes for the focus group. So if you're collecting data through focus group, almost all the things remain the same in terms of data collection and data analysis. Now, there's another method that is known as ethnography. Ethnography is actually uh, a form of data collection in which you become part of that society. Most of the times you live in those societies, you become part of them, you act like them, you eat with them, uh, so you can get some kind of in-depth observation and their point of view, the respondent's point of view about some social understanding or about an issue or about a problem. Uh, One of the issues with ethnography, as far as your dissertation is concerned, is that it's a very time consuming and long term data collection method. So I'm pretty sure that none of you will be using it, but at least you should have the understanding of what is ethnography. So you have to become part of them in order to observe. Sometimes when you have worked in an organization and after that time you become one of them, it is easier for you to observe and then record the data and the details related to what you're going to study. But it's also one of the good methods if you need to have some kind of in-depth understanding, and it falls under qualitative methods of data collection. Then we have some alternative methods that are available. For example, storytelling, for example, visual methods, poetry writing, essay writing, co creative methods, and then action research. Uh, if you want to use any of these, then you need to get in depth understanding of how to use them. Now, about these methods, there are some benefits. For example, the participants can be engaged comparatively easily, and because it's a different approach, it's most of the times it's playful, and you can come up with new insights related to the data that you're trying to collect. And as it's a unique method, it can help your dissertation to stand out. Some things that you need to be careful about while using these kind of methods is that, does the method suits your research questions? Have you revisited your questions regularly and you're very firm about it that yes, this method is going to work? Then, as it's something new, not many people might have used it, so it can be very challenging and complex to do your data analysis and data collection. Then sometimes, just because of a unique and a creative method, and when we are trying to put some novelty in our research methodology, we ignore the main purpose, the main substance of our research. And if you have to use it, you need to be very careful, that you need to be very clear with your expectations from the participants. So these are some of the do's and don'ts related to alternative methods. A quick note on virtual qualitative data collection. Uh, the most important thing here to note is that if you're using interview method to collect data and the interviews are not face to face, make sure that you're using MS Teams to conduct your interview. Uh, One, that your university has this formal platform which you can use for the interview, and Skype is no more permitted, so you'll only be using MS Teams. And then a good benefit of using MS Teams is that even if your interview is going beyond certain limit, it won't have any, it won't give you any issue as with some other softwares which give you limited time of the meeting. And then your transcriptions, which means the textual transcriptions will be generated automatically. You might have to click one or two things, but it has the capacity to generate these transcriptions for you. So if you're using virtual interviews, use MS Teams. Now, when you're collecting data, there are some practicalities that you need to keep in mind. For example, starting with gaining access. So make sure, if you're planning to collect data and gaining access to an organization, you might have already talked to them that you'll be collecting data, but do not expect that you're going to get all the data on one specific day of your own choice. So you need to be flexible with it. You might have to do multiple visit to that organization. You sometimes, if they have given you some kind of appointment, they might cancel it. You need to be strategic about it. Nobody really wants you there. Be patient, but at the same time persistent. Some more practicalities, for example, you might have to go for field notes. You might have to schedule interviews, and remember that the scheduling will not be done based on your timetable but their timetable. Try and make some kind of calendar or something in which you can then record your appointments, remember to visit them because some people might not give you a second chance. So you need to be very careful when you're collecting your data. So this is all from this lecture. We'll talk about how to complete your research proposal in our next mini lecture. Thank you very much.